Hey, Dew. Sorry. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. We got a fun card tonight. Just give me a second. I want to see if I can share this. Hopefully it's clear. I'm not too sure though. Hope everybody's doing good. Thanks, Dew. Hi, Nan. Alright, let me get that out of the way. Looks a little blurry. How is it by you? Hi, Judy. How are you? So, tonight we're going to make a magic slider, change it up a bit because I didn't really like the way this one ended up. So here's the front of the card. This is the DSP to the Love You Always suite, and I'm using basic black, real red, an acetate sheet, basic white. We're going to use the balloon punch, and I think I have that over here. Yep, I have the balloon punch. I'm going to use a small circle punch. And then for the inside, what I did was I punched out the balloons and added it on to the happy birthday so the card will stand up. But I didn't like the way the card was standing. I wanted it more vertical than it is. You can see how it's just, if I turn it this way, I just don't like how much it's leaning. But I wanted to be able to have the image shown. Come on, Iggs, get down. Have the image shown and then be able to pull out the image and see the colored image for the magic card. Now this is the Hey Girlfriend stamp set. I've actually been using this stamp set for my Patreon coloring class. I don't even think I have them all right here with me. Yep, I do. I've colored her skin in blends, Copic, and pencils. And then last week I did her clothes in blends. I ended up doing it twice because my video froze and I had to do it again. So this week I think we're going to be doing her clothes in Copics. But tonight's image I did color her with blends. Cold in Michigan? Hey, Ruth, it's cold here in Pennsylvania, too. Hey, Julie, how are ya? We woke up to another 4 inches of snow this morning, so that was fun. So not only did I have to clean out again, but I did run to the grocery store, so I figured tonight's card is a little bit more involved, so I was going to leave it to the one card so I don't take up too much time. I know last week's video ended up being over an hour long. So let's get started, and I'll do the base first. And actually what I did was I cut the base, and I will have directions for you in the group tomorrow. Excuse me. But I'll give you the measurements as I go. So it's 11 by 4 1/4. So it is this standard size, but we're going to use it so it is scored at 5 1/2. And then I scored it again at 1 inch. As on this one, you can see I scored it halfway on the front of the card. And like I said, I just do not like the way it sits. So this time I scored it at 1 inch. And after just playing with it, I think I'll like this one where it stands just like an easel a lot better. So we'll see. It'll be an experiment in front of everybody. So my card base is going to be the 5, let me just check it, just so I don't get it wrong, 5.5 by 4.25, because that is going to be our card front. So when it is closed, it is the same size as a standard card. Then I added a layer of real red, and that's not the right one. I'm going to make sure we get them right. And this one is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. That's a mistake. It's 5 1/4 by 4. I actually left 1/4 of an inch on this between these layers. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, the balloons are great too, and it's just from a punch, and I'll show you how I did that. And then we're going to use the Love You Always DSP. And again, let me just make sure I have the right one, because I'm doing the same thing on the inside. And this one is 1/8 of an inch smaller. So this should be 3 7/8. 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So let's get these layers together. I'm actually going to glue them because I did not fill up my seal. And I have actually the Seal Plus open, and I've been using that. But I have to say, there's a learning curve to using the seal, and I have not perfected it yet. So we're just going to leave that on the side, and I'll practice when I'm in my craft room by myself. So I hope everybody's doing good. Like I said, we had snow, and I believe we're supposed to be getting more. So it's going to be one of those kind of winters. I'm hating my snow shovel already. As many of you know, I usually end up having to shovel. This last big snowstorm, the young man who had come for the first snowstorm came back as I was shoveling my deck, and he asked that magic question: do you need some snow removal? It was yes. Oh, rain in Georgia. Yeah, I like this DSP too, Julie. I thought about coloring the DSP on the inside of the card just to try to coordinate it with the image being a magic image, but I didn't. I just thought that this card was so involved. Okay, so what we're going to do is, like I said, I am going to just attach this, and I just want to make sure that it's going to be okay. And I think it will. We'll just have to put the birthday right at the bottom. So let's glue this here. And I'm adding the glue to the card base itself. And then I'm just going to make sure it is lined up really well. So I'm using my table to make sure it's lined up. And we're going to get this glued down. So you'll see that it is only glued the first inch right to the score, and then it's attached, and this will leave this so it's floppy. So let's let that dry really well, and we'll jump to the inside. Like I said, I'm going to use, because we're going to use the Stamparatus, I'm going to use the small cut and emboss, and I have to pull in my cutter so I can show you how to do this little slider envelope. So we're going to do the inside. This is 5 1/4 by 4, and then it's 5 1/8 by 4 1/8. And this is the inside. As you can see, my glue is even running out. I think I should buy stock in some glue. And then if you noticed, even my printer gave out on me. I think I have to realign the printer head. I didn't do that the last time I put the ink in. So I think that's what the problem is. Thanks, Julie. Yes, Emma, I saw that too. 4 days in the next 7. And we're supposed to get some heavy snow. Thanks, Julie. I love my coloring. Okay, so we're going to put this on the inside of the card. I wanted it to match the front. And if anybody follows my blog or my Pinterest, you know I have a Pinterest board that says, don't forget the inside. And I even make mention of it on my blog every single day. Okay, so there's the inside. Now we always have to have some place to write. So I'm going to give a little space to write. And I'm going to actually leave this completely white, because when the card is not on its easel stand, I'll show you in 1 second. Let me just get this so it's straight. I made it so the happy birthday lays down flat and it has the balloons there. So we didn't really need to add anything to this white insert because the balloons will do it. And actually this white balloon should have had a little black line. So we're going to just adhere this layer right into the center of this card. Again, making sure it's pretty centered. You're not gonna... Okay. So there is the front of our card and the inside of the card. We'll do the birthday and the balloons in a little bit. So let's jump to the pocket. As you can see, here's the acetate. Let me see if I have a white piece of paper. So she is stamped onto the acetate, and then she is stamped onto the basic white, and I colored her with Copics. And let's pull out the Stamparatus so I can show you exactly what to do. Now I did already stamp her on the acetate because it does take a little bit of time for it to dry. So I have a 2 3/4 by 3 3/4 sheet of basic white. And what I did was I lined it up in the corner of the Stamparatus, and then she is already on the lid, but I laid her face down to get her centered on this sheet of paper. And then we're going to ink her up with Memento because we're going to be coloring with blends. So you need to use Memento so it doesn't smear. And we're just going to give her a stamp. And make sure she's stamped really nice. And she looks pretty good. So that's the image you're going to color. Now, you're going to do the same thing with the acetate. Set the acetate in the corner, just like you did your basic white, but this time you're going to use StazOn because it adheres and dries better on the acetate. So again, we're going to ink her up. Give her a nice good inking because you want this image to be fairly dark. And we're just going to give her a good stamp. And actually, she looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to put her aside because, like I said, I did already stamp her. So you can see that it's nice and stamped. But let me just put that aside so the cat doesn't step on it. And we can put our Stamparatus away. So now we have our 2 layers. The acetate is 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And be careful because everything sticks to the acetate. So when we put these together, you want to make sure that your image lines up completely. You can see that it is off a little, so you just want to wiggle it a little until you get it where it looks like it is exactly the same. Oh, there she goes. I have a little ridge. I can feel a ridge on one of the sheets. So hold on one second. Okay, there we go. So she's good up there. Now we get her legs. So you want her to be completely straight. And the image on the acetate and the image on the piece of cardstock, you want them to line up really nice. So now that I showed you that, we're going to color. Now I'm not going to color her all in because, as you can see, I did her. This one, to be honest, I did do her face in Copics, but her dress, her hair, and her little headband was done in Stampin' Blends, and actually the little flower I did in Stampin' Write markers. So let me just do her dress real quick to show you how I did her dress. I started with dark cherry cobbler, and if you'll know that the StazOn is used for the acetate do. Yeah, my candy bar wrapper, yeah, that's on my Pinterest board. That one came out pretty good. The StazOn is for the acetate, It doesn't smear as much. It dries a little quicker. It works really good on the acetate. So we're going to start with her dress, and if you take my coloring class on Patreon, you know that you want to have a dark color, you want to have a light color, and you want to have the real color of the dress. Now, the problem that I run into sometimes is our stamping blends come in light and dark. So we have the dark, we have our dress color. Now we need a highlight color. Now with Cherry Cobbler, it's easy because I can pull in the light real red, and that makes it easier and gives me my 3-color blend. If we didn't have a light color, I could always use gray or navy blue or some sort of a blue to darken up my dark Cherry Cobbler. So all I did was, we know that her head is sitting over her shoulders. I'm going to add some shadow at her shoulders. Let me see if I can move this in a little bit. Just bear with me a second. Okay. It might be a little blurry, but at least you can see a little better. So here's her shoulders. Now, if you'll notice, I didn't want this little girl flat-chested, so I started at her armpits, and I'm going to use this V in her dress as my center mark. So I am just going to create a half an oval and go back down to the other side. So it's giving her a little bit of a bust. And that would be the shadow because it's my darkest color. Now she has her waist and her belt. So we're going to have a shadow under her belt. Now, we're going to go with the artist lines. In her dress, the artist drew her pleats, or where the folds are in her dress, and we can see that it's a nice full dress and not a flat dress because it has scallops at the end. Now the scallop is showing that instead of the dress laying flat, it's going to be just like this. If you're looking down from her head to her toes, this is how her dress is going to look. So this is going to be a hill, and this is going to be a valley. So your valleys are going to be dark because the sunlight or the light is going to hit this last, and the peaks or the hills are going to be the lightest because the light is going to hit it first. So we're going to darken these lines, and we're going to do them all. And you can see my hand is trembling a little bit, so my lines are not really that straight. Aw, thanks, Stu. Now where we have these little scallops, this scallop here is going to be light. So here is where we're going to have a dark spot. Same thing here, it's going to be a dark spot. Same thing here, wherever it's coming up on her dress, that's going to be your dark spot. So there's all my shadows. So now I'm going to go to my light Cherry Cobbler, and we're going to extend these lines just a little. Now I use the nib part of the marker only because I find that the brush, when you're doing small little detailed areas, although it's a nice fine tip, it bleeds more. So I have more control over the ink that comes out of the marker. So I'm just going to extend this line just a little. I'm going to outline near her arm because it'll be a little bit of a shadow near her arms. And I am going to extend it down her waist and under her bust and around her belt. So we have a little bit of area there with light on it. We're going to come down her V and connect where we did our scallop. And we're going to come up on the other side. Now we're going to do the same thing to her dress. We're going to give a nice line on the outside of the dress because her dress is rounded, so it's going to be a little darker on the ends. And then we're going to follow this line down on both sides, extending it down, extend her waist, extend it on both sides of that dark cherry cobbler. This one too, because like I said, this valley is it comes down and up. So even though it's going to be dark here, it's going to be a little lighter here, a little lighter here, and then this is where the light is going to hit the most. So I'm going to turn my image, just going to outline the outside of the dress. Now we're going to go do the bottom. We're going to extend that dark area on the bottom of her dress, follow it around, follow that dress line around, extend that V or that dark spot that we did, follow it around, and there's her dress. So now we're going to use the light red. This is our highlight. Now, it's not really light enough. So, what I'm going to do is one more time, I'm going to extend the light cherry cobbler, and I'm going to leave white, as you can see, except on her waist, because I want to highlight. And we're going to do the same thing on her dress. And if I'm not paying attention to comments, I'm sorry. I'll look at them in a second. So we're just extending that light cherry cobbler and leaving white on the dress, because I want this dress to have a really nice highlight. So these, I don't even know, I don't want to call them pleats because they're not pleats. The word escapes me. But I want it to have a nice highlight. Okay. Now that we have all that color, you'll notice, and I'll lift it up a little, the dark cherry cobbler has lightened up a bit because we've used markers lighter than it, and the more alcohol you use, it takes away your darkness. So I'm just going to go back in, and wherever I had the dark cherry cobbler, I'm just going to darken it up. And I know it, but it'll lighten up again when I add the highlights. But you want darkness, because in order to see a highlight, you need to have dark. Okay, so we added our dark again. So now you can see there are really dark areas on that dress. I'm going to go back to my light real red. Believe it or not, this time I'm going to use the brush, and I'm just going to give it a quick wash. I don't want to color it. I don't want to fill it in really good. I just want to give it a quick wash over those white spots and let it dry. And what'll happen is where I colored with the real light real red already, it is going to darken that area, and then I have one layer of the real red. And the same thing, as it dries, it is going to lighten up that dark cherry cobbler. And then all I did was to add a little bit more highlight is I took my white pencil and added the highlight on each pleat of her dress, on her bust, and then there is her dress. It's just layering natural fullness folds. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Even in my other video, Nan, I could not think. I know they're not pleats, but that's how I colored her dress. And if you wanted to learn how to color her skin, like I did here, pop on into my Patreon class. And I have my skin videos in there. This week, like I said, this month we're working on clothes. Okay, so now that we have our, oh, look, I didn't even finish her shoes. Let's finish her shoes here. And I did the same thing. Dark cherry cobbler, light cherry cobbler, little bit of real red. And if you wanted to, it's a little wet now, you could even put a little line of white right at where her shoe would be. So I'm just going to take a little seal. Just want to put a teeny little bit of seal so we're going to line her up again. Making sure that we get her lined up really well. And I'm just going to, but you know what? Before we do that, I knew I was going to forget something. Let's put her red dots. This little stamp is actually from the ice cream corner suite. I guess they're a different kind of sprinkles. And that's exactly what I used to add my dots around her. I just wanted it to be a little bit more festive, so she doesn't have just white space around her. So I'm just going around, and actually this little stamp is great because it has this little area there that I can bring it pretty close to her body as I'm turning, and I didn't use a, okay, just to doll her up a little bit. So let's go back to our acetate, and we're just going to line her up. I think we've done this 3 times already. Last time, ladies, last time. Okay, so we want to make sure she's lined up, and she looks pretty good there. Let me just grab a scrap piece of paper. I'm actually using an old 3/4 inch Stampin' Up! Punch for my circle. And I just want to fold this in half. And I'm just going to do it on the edge of my desk. And I just want to get this folded in half. Make sure it has a nice edge. And then we're going to use this seal carefully. Make sure she's straight. And this is going to go on to the top of these two cards. It holds it together a little bit. It'll hold them even. And then I can take my hole punch, and we're just going to punch a little hole right in the center, just like that. Now for the other card I used pink. I'm going to use white. Thanks, Stu. And where's my scissors? So we're just going to cut a piece of twine, and we're going to just add this, if I can get it in here, into this little opening. I think the white will look much better. And there we go. Just tie it off. Okay, so there's our insert finished. Now for the little envelope. Now the envelope measures 8.5 by 3.5. And what we're going to do, let me just check. I'm going to move some stuff out of the way because it's infringing on my space here. And I'm going to pull in my cutter. Okay, must have glue on it. So like I said, it is 3.5. What did I say? 8.5. Make sure I get it right. Yep, 8.5. So we are going to score this. Just want to make sure I get this right. 8.5, 4.25. Yes. So we're going to score it in half, and I'm off here. Score it at 4.5. Okay, I think I can let the camera back out a little bit. Okay. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, I like mine too, Nan. It's so great. Okay, so our 8.5 inch piece, I scored it in half at 4.25. Now, I'm going to line it up at 1/4 inch on the right-hand side here. And I'm going to stand so I get this straight. I'm going to use my cutter, and then I'm going to cut down to the score line at 1/4 inch. And then I am going to score, let me move this up a little, score up to the score line on that 1/4 inch. So on this one side, I have a cut piece and I have a scored piece. And I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. 1/4 inch. Now you're going to use, if you can see on your cutter, there's a little mark that marks where the center is. So you're going to line that mark up with your score line so you know you're coming all the way down. And you're going to do the same thing with the score, or the cutter, I should say. The score line is the same. There's a little mark right here. You're going to make sure that lines up with your score line. So now you have a piece of cardstock that has 2 1/4 inch ends and then your scored end. So before we do anything, we are going to just snip these pieces off at a diagonal, just so you have the corner, the cut the corner off. So now we can get everything folded and burnished. You want it to be a nice, crisp folds. Okay, just like that. Now, as you can see, we need a window. So what I did at first is I used, I don't even know which ones they are, 3.5 and 3. So I used the 3.5 scallop, the 3-inch oval, and I cut out my little window frame. So now I'm going to use the small die. Let's grab our little Stamp and Emboss. Hopefully this will fit through here, and it will. Haven't even used this, so we're going to christen this little baby tonight. So the front of this little pocket is the side with the 2 flaps that we scored. So you're going to lay that down, and we want to line this. I want to make sure that it doesn't move. I do have another one made, so I prepared myself tonight. And we're just going to line this up, and I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not measuring, but you want to just make sure that it is centered pretty much in the center. And did it move? Yeah, it did. Okay, we'll try that again. I should put a piece of washi tape on it. Okay. And let's run this through. Okay. Well, it's been christened. Okay, so now we have our little window, and when this little girl goes inside, she'll fit right inside that window. We'll put that away. Now we're going to take our frame, cat hair, and we're just going to add a little bit of glue all the way around. And I'm doing this first so it has a little bit to dry. And we're going to line this up. It should fit the opening perfect because it's the same die. You just might have to move it around a little. Okay, so there is that. I am going to trim my top corners just a little bit, cut them on an angle, and then we have our insert ready. Now, to make the magic happen, we need a piece of basic white for the inside of her. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over, grab some tearing tape, find the end, and we're going to add a piece of tearing tape right down to the bottom of this piece of cardstock. Now this time I'm going to make sure I get this right, because when I did the original one I ended up having to pull it apart because I didn't put this down far enough. So you want to make sure, I'm just going to measure her out. So as you can see, here's my score line. Here's where my girl ends. So I want to make sure that it's going to cover the window and leave me enough room to slide her in. So I'm going to put this way down here, centering it right at the score line. We're just going to burnish these again, making sure they're nice and crisp. Close this up. And let's see. I think this time we'll use a little glue. On these little quarter-inch sides, I did use tear and tape for the last one. This one I'm going to try glue. So we're going to put some nice glue on here. Just like that. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. Now we want the back of this and the front of this to be even. So just hold your sides down, and then starting at the bottom, just move it right up. And that should make it nice and even. And it does. I'm going to make sure that stays. Piece of glue. Okay, so there's our window. Now we have our little girl. You're going to slide her into this with the acetate on the front, in the front, because we have that little piece of white paper in there, and the colored image is going to go in behind. So we're going to just put these in so the colored image is in the back and the acetate is in the front. Just line this up. And then I missed it again. Just going to stick my finger in here so we get this. There we go. Now I got the acetate and the picture. And there's a silence. I think I got it this time. There we go. Okay. So we're just going to slide her in. And she does fit. Just like that. I have a piece of hair. And I think she's in there pretty good. See where that white piece is. Okay. Now before I do anything, I am just going to, so I can see what I'm doing, I'm just going to mark the inside of this with a pencil real quick so I can see where I want to just snip out a little half circle so we can see the string, the pull string. And that is her little box. So we'll pull the card back out and we're going to adhere her to the front of the card. Now if you wanted to make it so she was a little lower in this window, let me just, you can always pull it out and trim a little bit off the bottom of the image if you wanted. This one, I'm not sure how it falls. Yeah, see on this one, her head, you see more of her hair. So I could always pull it back out, take a trim off the bottom, and I don't want to take too much, but I can see that there's some acetate hanging at the bottom, so we can just trim it off a little bit and then try to get it back inside this card. It should be easier this time because I got it the other time, right? There we go. Okay. So there she is. I use some of the resin hearts from the Love You Always, and I used white. And I guess I could have used the red. Let's see if I can't get this out of the sleeve. There we go. So we're just going to add some little resin hearts. To each of the corners, because I just felt there was the little pouch was too much with all the black, but you could even use some embossing powder and stamp. That would work too. Okay, so now the balloons. All I did was, with the balloons, I punched out, and the balloon punch actually has a large and a small balloon, and oh, it works. And all I did was punch the small little balloons, and then I grabbed my Stampin' Chalk marker and added a highlight to each balloon. And then you saw me do it before. I wanted to add one to the white one. Just makes it look like it is not flat, adds a little dimension to it. So now we're going to grab some of the twine, and again, I used pink. I guess we can use pink on the inside. Let's grab the pink. I just turn my balloons over. We're going to cut 4 pieces of twine. Get one more. We can always trim these when we need to. I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal, and I'm just going to, on each of the balloons, add a line of seal onto the back of the balloons. Now you'll see that at the little tip, it does extend past, and as you can see, just fold it over. We're going to lay the twine down on that seal, and then we're going to take a 1/4 inch of acetate, and we're going to make them all different sizes, and we're going to attach that acetate right to the back of the balloon. We're going to leave the thread so it dangles. I'm just going to add the thread. This one is overhanging a little bit. And then grab our acetate. Make sure it sticks down pretty good. So a little piece right there. And then we're going to do the same thing with these two. I'm going to add the thread. Grab my piece of acetate. And like I said, it's 1/4 of an inch. And we may have to trim these. But we're going to add the little piece of acetate. Make sure the seal's not overhanging. And then we're going to do it to the last one. How you doing tonight, Kathy? Okay, so now our little balloons are on their acetate sticks. So all I'm going to do is grab my happy birthday and real red, and we're going to stamp the happy birthday. Now I'm going to leave a little bit on the bottom because I do want to put a strip of real red cardstock. So we're just going to bring it up a little bit, give it a good stamp. Now this piece is actually going to be, I want it to be 3 inches wide because I want it to fit right between on this insert. And I already did, I think this is, I did cut one out already. So I'm just going to hold this in place. I'm just going to mark it because I want to show you something quick. What I did was I wanted to cut around so it wasn't just a square or a rectangle. And all I did was using your scissors and keeping a good even flow of pressure on your scissors. Just keep moving, not your scissors, but move your piece of paper. And you'll have nice rounded letters across the top. And you can come in, just keep going, keep even pressure on your scissors as much as you can, and just keep moving your paper so you'll just get a nice flow all the way down. And then you can decide how you want your Y. So all I did was, I already did my happy birthday here. So let's just trim this down. I don't have a nice straight edge, so I'll use the line as my straight edge. Just like that. That should be my 3 inches. And it is. So I just want to add that little strip of red, like I said, just so it doesn't look so stark white. My husband's out there singing. He must have his headphones on. And we're just going to line this up right under the happy birthday. Now this is going to be what we're going to use to hold the card up. So let's just trim this off. Let that dry for a second. Okay, so I just want to check to make sure Okay, not bad. So I'm just going to grab my scoreboard real quick. And right where we glued this together, we're just going to put a score line right down the center of it. Just like that. And then we're just going to fold this up and lay it flat again. And this little area where the red is all we're going to glue into the card. So let's line this up. So it fits right into that space. I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. And then we're going to, I lost one of my little acetates, add our balloons. And all I did was add some glue and then see where I wanted it. Okay. We'll shorten this one a little bit. Now we want our little strings to lay free. And we may, like I said, we probably have to trim them. Because the strings will be a little too long. And just put your balloons wherever you want to put them. This one's coming off. There we go. Stick that down. And we'll leave this one tall. Like that. Okay. So let's see what our strings look like. I don't want them to be laying outside the card. So we'll just take the good scissors, trim these out, and then we have the inside of the card. So when this dries really nice, you can take your card and stand it up, and then you have your happy birthday. And then this way it gives you access to the slider, and you can slide it, a piece of hair, in and out as an easel card. And I got a little bit of glue. And then once these are nice and dry, they're still damp. It'll close up just like this one. Now this one I didn't separate the acetate. Let's see if I can separate it out. There we go. See, this one, I just didn't like the way this one stood. Now this one stands up nice and tall. So it's a big difference in the way it stands. And you have your happy birthday. Inside and out. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll have the PDF for this in the room tomorrow. Oop, that light is really glary. Oh, yeah, pretty cool, right? It's a really neat interactive card. I mean, you start with your black and white, and it's automatically colored. So it's just a cute interactive card and a fun fold card all at the same time. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you so much, Ruth. I really appreciate it, Judy. I will definitely, I don't know, it'll probably be about noon, but I'll have the PDF. If you spend $20 in my store by Monday using this host code, I will send you all the ingredients to make this card on your own. Hope you had a great night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everybody being here. If you share this video, add share in the comments. I am going to do a double pick for next week because there was only a few that shared the video last week. So I'm just going to combine everybody and do a drawing next week before the video. So have a great night. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye, ladies.